Oh, okay, beautiful. You can always count on Yogananda, right? I've never read something of Yogananda and say, oh, that wasn't very good. You know, it's just like he's just always in the zone. For years, I've shared before, but for years, when I travel, you know, all these many decades, some people, you know, you often have books to read. I often just had his annual calendar, and I would read the quotes out of it. Just the quotes of Yogananda were like feeding my soul as much as any full book, for that matter. We're going to finish today. We spent a couple of weeks talking about the Gospel of Luke. It's almost the only time in all my years that I ever said, well, let's do a study of a particular teaching, you know, the Bible especially. So I've not really done that. I don't come up here and we're going to cover Genesis 3:8, you know. I don't do that. I just kind of go and channel, you know, whatever's happening at the time. I often even ask you folks, what do you want me to talk about? And then you say it and we go right there. But I want to finish this. We've done it for a couple of weeks. Last week we took a break from it and talked about frequency. Beautiful stuff, wasn't it? It's great. Oh my God, how wonderful, right? It was just great. Today, just finishing up the last third or fourth, I don't remember how we broke it up, the Gospel of Luke. Now, we're doing this from a deeper perspective. We're not playing theologian. We're not, you know, going historian here. We're just looking at deeper teachings and messages. And I'm choosing snippets out of that gospel that are relevant to us in our day-to-day lives, but translating things from a bit of a deeper place. So by the time you get to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, there's a really beautiful message here. You know, listen and hear it, but also try to allow yourself to translate intuitively the deeper message, even before I give you some other translation. But it starts off, Jesus said to his disciples, things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone through whom they come. Challenges are going to happen on earth, but woe to those through whom they come. So be careful. And if your brother or sister does something to harm you, call them on it. And if they apologize and make amends, forgive them. Even if they do harm again, but sincerely, apologize and make amends, forgive them again. Okay? So that one, you might already have some hits on that one, but you know, he's pointing out that in this world, people will continue to do hurtful and selfish things because that's part of the ego-based world. So he's saying that, but you know, hang in there. But he also adds, woe to the person who the harm is coming through. Meaning, if harm comes to you, hang in there. It happens in this world. If you're the one causing the harm, you better think twice. Karma, okay? But he does go on to say advice to you and me about forgiveness. He doesn't say enable. He also doesn't say lock down and never forgive. There's a condition he's giving, for lack of a better word. If people are sincere and make amends, I apologize and I'm making amends, just like in recovery, you apologize and you make amends, give them a shot. Okay? If it's not sincere, if they only do half of it, only apologize and not change the way they are, I mean, the change gives you something tangible. Practice forgiveness. He goes on to say because they're asking him, when is this time of the second coming of Christ? He says, it's not something that it can be externally observed per se. That's not supposed to be your focus. Now, this is very tricky the way he words this whole thing, but he ends up saying, the second coming of Christ, that's already happened once. Why would a second coming be any different? It's supposed to be an internal experience. It doesn't mean you will not also see something happen on the outside. But the second coming of Christ, some people are preaching, oh, you know, Jesus is coming back and he's angry, you know. There's a bit of that on the televangelist programs. But how could he be? You know, when they say Jesus is coming back and he's angry, how about Jesus is coming back and he's quite excited that we're prepared to join him in that consciousness? I've never heard anybody say that. He goes on to say, but on that day when I return, if you're on your housetop, don't go inside to get your things. If you're out in the field, don't go into the house to get things. What he goes on to say is that should be your only priority. When it's happening, if you're, and again, I know it's not easy for us to apply all these principles in our day-to-day lives, but what he's partly saying, if you're in your home and you're in meditation and you have an epiphany that's like, oh my God, I get it. I'm awake. I'm now going to be clean and sober. Your friends that you party with might not like that. That's the metaphor when he says, don't go back in the house and get things. What he's saying is, don't go back. When you wake up, don't go back. Oh, but my friends are going to be, who cares? Keep going, move on. And if it's your own family, there's only one family that's real, spiritual family. Not even just this spiritual family, but we quoted this from the Gospel of Luke a couple of weeks ago. Like Jesus was saying, those who do the will of God are my family. It doesn't mean those who are not doing the will of God are not my family, but it does mean they're not acting like it, so I won't hang with them. Okay? How is that helping? Enabling one generation after another. There are generations that have had abuse in the child, for children in the home, and they say, don't talk about it. You'll spoil everybody's fun. I'm not having fun. Nor is there a person who was abused that we're keeping secrets around. I'm not saying you need to out things just, that could be, just to be hurtful. I'm saying that hurtful secrets are hurtful anyway. I don't care if it's family. And if someone in your family has caused harm and they apologize and make amends, you do your best to forgive. That doesn't mean you're condoning the behavior. I said amends, which means that's done. And if I'm the person who took on some of the hurtful behavior, but somehow we, through waking up, forgiving, amends, change my hurt into healed and your hurt into no more behavior like that, that's actually miraculous. I know we still want revenge, but when we really tune into the good that comes from these shifts in our lives, there's nothing better. I mean, it is amazing when people say, okay, no more of that. I've asked that of you, in your lives. Hang in there, be vigilant, set boundaries in your life. But even when I've asked people, say no to friends that gossip. Somebody comes up to you and starts, gossiping, hate stuff. They say it about you. They say it about me. They don't even know me, but they come up with it. They say it about your other friends. Just say, were you married to that person? No, but I've heard. Wait. What you're doing is a form of evil. Immediately, they're not going to be friends anymore. But listen, what you're doing is a form of evil. Gossip. Gossip is, how is that? There's a term for it, backstabbing. Why would it be called backstabbing if it was handing out flowers? You're causing harm. I know it's only with words, but guess what? It hurts. I mean, you can go to science on that. They've proven that kind words to animals are sensed by the animals. Even plant life grows more hardy with kind words. If a plant can get this, why can't you? Why is a philodendron more intelligent than a human? It's just responding to the vibes of what's going on in the room. So you can, say all kinds of harmful things to your children and then say, well, it's just the way it was when we were growing up. You can apologize and make amends because you allow the child who grew up with that negative, the gossip, the hurt, the hate, you allow them to go, so none of that was true. I can come out now because I was programmed that this is the way I am, or bad or shameful or whatever it is. I can come out and I can be free. That's called being born again. Born again just doesn't mean Jesus on a river baptism. It means I get to have a new life. And sometimes just giving yourself permission, even if your parents or your friends or your partners don't own what they've done, why don't you just do it? My parents were wrong. When they said I'm worthless, they were wrong. They were wrong. They were. It can't be true. Something made in God's image is worthless. How could that be? They're wrong. Now some of us, but I don't want to think that way. My mom passed away. So what? It's good for her to hear it. Mom, you were wrong. Whatever level of heaven or hell you might reside right now, hear me clearly. You were mistaken. And the good news is, guess what, Mom? If you were mistaken about me, you were probably mistaken about you. You too now can be free. So your child, who you thought was worthless, just released you from hell. Pretty cool. Because I get it. How can I hold it against you now that I got it? All is forgiven because I'm awake. And your mom, dad, whomever, ex-husbands even living still, that happens, believe it or not. On some level, they'll feel a decompression. How much? There's no way to know. It depends if they're in touch with their soul enough to go, there's something wrong with the way I've conducted my life, and I'm looking for an out. Not that that's conscious. But when you bring that out, instantaneous things happen. So you can be part of that miracle. All right. So Jesus says about giving up all you have. I love this. He says, truly I tell you, no one who has left their home or their wife or their husband, their brothers or sisters, parents, children, for the sake of God's consciousness, will fail to receive many times as much in this age and in the ages to come. Meaning, make God your priority. If people don't get it, sorry. Stay your course, stick to your guns, and keep going forward. Anyone who has, for whatever reason, had to part the seas, leave old Egypt, Moses takes the people out of Egypt. That's you getting out of your home. That's getting away from a toxic marriage. If you have great marriages, keep giving thanks for all the goodness. But the context is, sometimes you say, Pharaoh, free my people. Oh, who's my people? Me. Husband, free me. Goodbye. Now, Moses didn't say, only with your permission. He said, by the way, we're leaving now. You think the Pharaoh went, oh, namaste. Thanks. I'm fine to be losing millions of free slave labor. That's no problem. No. And if the Pharaoh complained, some family members are going to complain when you say, Pharaoh, ego, free my people. I'm coming out of captivity. I want to know what it is to be alive. I mean, I've had people tell me, the problems in relationships, like I'm not allowed to speak at the table. We're talking about a grown woman. My husband says I'm not allowed to speak at the table because that's the way he was brought up. It's just interesting. See, now I have my humor about those kinds of things. I think that while he's sleeping, he should wake up with a shock collar. Then every time he tells you you're not allowed to speak, what was that? I don't know. So I have my humorous visions of how to deal with this world, but I'm not going to advise that to you. All right? The bottom line is when you give up material things for spiritual things, that just told you, you will be rewarded. But he said, in this age and ages to come. Why would he say this age, first of all? Because he means you don't have to wait till someday you get your good karma. It can change your life now to start choosing spiritual priority over material. Got that one? But then he adds, and in the ages to come. Why? Well, good karma for the... No, it's all that, yes, but it's also... It means you're permanently going to be different. So if I made some changes today, that's going to go with me to the ages to come. I will have that same freedom level of consciousness. The next, there's a tax collector who's hearing about Jesus, and he's going, he's touring Jericho, I think it was, and the tax collector thinks, hey, I've heard about this guy. This guy's wealthy, this tax collector. And he's like, I want to hear this Jesus. So he's kind of watching for him. And Jesus senses something. So he says, hey, I'd like you to, Zacchaeus, I think is his name. But he says, I'd like to come to your home. Now here's what, this is people, gossip. The people standing around go, oh, did you, 1 minute we were loving, honoring Jesus. But he did something we don't like. He's going to go and hang out with this sinner, they called them. This sinner, this tax man. He's a sinner because you don't like paying taxes, first of all. But this wealthy sinner, oh, he's horrible. So this is interesting because Jesus says, the guy says, look, Lord, here and now, I need to know, what would you want me to do? I believe in you as a teacher. What do you want me to do? I have given half of my possessions to the poor. This is how this guy lives. Everybody thinks he's just a selfish, greedy, wealthy tax collector. He comes out and says, I already have given half of everything I own, and I do give, to the poor. Amazing. Then he says, if I've cheated anybody out of anything that wasn't supposed to be taxed and paid, I'm going to pay them back 4 times the number of dollars. See what he's doing? He's coming out. First of all, if I have made mistakes, I apologize and I'm willing to make amends. I love that. But he's also saying, God, what would you have me do to confirm that, to be a better person? So Jesus responds and says, today salvation has come to this man's house. And by house, he doesn't mean the walls. He means that person, which is very similar to literally hanging on the cross with 2 criminals. And one of them saying, hey, listen, if you really do have powers, can we go to, Miami, hang out, South Beach? The other guy's going, you know what? Enough. We messed up. We've lived a horrible life and we've caused a lot of harm. If this is what the world brings to us, retribution or whatever, so be it. He said, this guy isn't one of us. They're killing him for being good. You see? What does Jesus say? Today you shall be with me in paradise. Well, how could he even say that? The same as when he says to a leper, you're healed. Take off the garments that, you were covering yourself with. You're, crippled and whatnot. Get up and walk. It's the same consciousness. The sinner, tax man, wow, this house is redeemed. This person, he's saying consciousness. In one split second, you can get it. In one split second, this guy, this criminal, saw who he was. Now, he doesn't just mean Jesus. When you and I see the value of the light in us, the presence of God in us, the presence of the Christ in us, and can go so far as to say no to the non-God parts of us, Jesus just told you, today you will be with me in paradise. It doesn't matter what you've done. It's not like, well, I've lived all spiritual. I'm now... That worked for a few people in all of history. Let's say that on this planet, a grand total, let's pretend 100 billion people have existed, just using a number. Do you know how many reached enlightenment by trying to be perfect? A few. I mean, those are terrible odds. So Jesus is trying to say, you guys are still trying to spiritualize yourself. I'm almost there, Lord. Just one more, vegan meal a day. Just one more, no sex, no money. I'm homeless. Jesus is kind of laughing at that sort of thing. He's like, didn't you hear me? Read about me. I sat with prostitutes and drank wine with them. Do you know what people could say about you when you're a rabbi doing that sort of, and I've heard it, right? It's like people, oh my God, why are you hanging out with naughty people? I was just talking with one of you in the back of the room before we started, and he was telling me what a big fan of a heavy metal band he was. And so I just talked to him about that. Love it. But if one of these overthinkers from 2,000 years ago would have heard us, they would have said, Michael was talking to a sinner, a guy who likes heavy metal, or whatever they would have called it then. Okay? I love it. I love that conversation. I love that we're talking about whatever. And so Jesus is sitting down having wine, and they're just condemning the heck out of him. So we're being told, you focus on God and just own this. Your human self, even if you only have 1% ego, which you do, your human self, you can't fix yourself. You can't make holy yourself. You need the higher power to do it because it's the higher power that knows how to do it. The mother, the divine mother, the Holy Spirit of God, is waiting to birth everybody. Your mommy gave you birth physically. The Holy Spirit, the divine mother, is waiting to birth you spiritually. She is not waiting for you to birth yourself and showing up going, guess what? I'm enlightened. And if you did, you know what she would say? I'm very glad to hear that. And then under her breath, she's going to say, you probably could have done it 1,000,000 years ago if you'd have just not judged yourself. We don't need to do all the perfect kneel, stand, pray, chant, om, mani, padme, boom, shakalaka, boom, and so on and so on. We don't actually have to fast ourselves to prove perfection. We don't have to lay on a bed of nails. Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, go ahead, fast, prove that you're not a human. Prove that you're not of the ego. Prove it. Go ahead. He says it will work. You will eventually wake up. But you could have saved a lot of time if you would have just said, isn't that funny? That deep inside I know the truth of God, and yet on a human level I still play this game. You know, I'm still getting a vaccine. I'm still wearing a mask. Isn't it? I still change my children's diaper or whatever you do. That's just this world. Our job is to forgive the world that we think has power over us. Our job is not to get the right politician in office and then everything's going to be fine. Our job is not the right diet. Your job, our job is to say, I'm going to forgive myself for even thinking I have a body to feed. Because it's not there. It's a hologram. When you get to the other side and you go, you know, you were making a religion out of your diet, and you get to the other side and you realize, you know, they're going to say, well, how'd you do? Oh, man, I was only eating perfectly organic foods. How do you know it was organic? It said right on the label. And then they'll show you a video of how these companies make money on putting false labels. You know, and then you're going to be like, what was I thinking? I want an Oscar Mayer hot dog now or something, you know, and a Coke. It's like, you know, be careful. Don't make a religion out of it. Forgive yourself. And if you still have a smoke, oh, it's terrible, you know, it's going to cause this and that and the other. You're going to have more pain coming from you, just people telling you of what smoking can do to you than what the actual cigarette would do. But that's another story. If you still have a cigarette, just do this, you know, just look at and realize this is not even real. I'm a holy child of God, and I think this little white stick calms me down. Laugh at it and then light up. The more you start seeing the truth, the more you're going to realize I don't do it as often. The hobbies, habits, whatever you want to call them, they're like the sea for Moses. They're going to part. You and I are going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Your job is to forgive yourself, but it's going to happen. You're going to slip and say a wrong word sometime. You're going to cheat or look at someone else when you're married. These things are going to happen. And you could say, never, never. Okay, great. You're making your brain not do it, but your body is tense because you're so afraid of doing it. Relax, relax, find peace. So Jesus is telling them, you know, hey, don't judge me because I dine with what you people think are sinners. Look at you guys, all in your garb, your robes and your special hats and, you know, all the whole thing, you know, your entourage of other holy people. And you all walk around, you know, look at us. And then at night, you're sleeping with the people I was partying with. You know, I mean, honestly, that's what they were doing. So it's like everybody just come out. You know, it's okay. They were wrong to shame you for being gay, for being straight, for being this or that. Just take the veils off. So this goes into, Jesus shares a parable. And he says, okay, and I'm just summarizing it, but he says, okay, look, there's this wealthy guy, and he's going to be made king of his area. So he's going off to get coronated. And before he leaves, he says to one guy, again, I'm just paraphrasing, he says to one of his servants, here's 10 gold coins. I want you to do something productive with them to multiply the gold. You know, great. The other guy, 5 gold coins. Do something productive. I'm going to give you 1 gold coin. Whatever. You know, variety of people. And then he leaves, gets coronated, comes back. He's the king. And he says, so how did you do? This guy says, hey, I took the 10 coins and multiplied them. Whether he multiplied 1 into 10 or 10 into 100. I invested and we did great. Well, good job. So you took a gold coin, you made it into 10. Great. He says, now I'm going to give you rulership over several provinces. The next guy, how'd you do? Well, I made several gold coins too from what you gave me. Great. Not as many as that. I'm going to give you less provinces, but you still get honored. Next guy, well, I took the gold coin and I hid it away because I was afraid you were going to be mean to me if I blew it. So I did nothing with it. This parable, Jesus goes on to say, is about you and me. You're given talents and you're afraid to show them. The way you smile is one of your talents. Your laughter might be, not laughing at people, but your type of laughter, your tone of your voice, your believe it or not, it might even be just your handwriting style. The goodness in us is supposed to be coming out. And if you were given talents that you do not share with the world, I don't care your reasons. Well, but my dad said I wasn't really good at it, so I never shared it with the world. He just told you. Why did the one guy not invest? Because he was afraid of what might happen. So if you still have these programs about daddy, mommy, this might happen, that might happen, at the end of this story, Jesus says, the one that was given the coin, take the coin away from him. He gets nothing. Why? Because he gave nothing. He didn't trust. So when you're not trusting in your talents, because they're called talents sometimes, these coins, when you're not trusting in your talents, essentially you're allowing fear to control you, which means you're already dead. So how can you come out? If you have a partner, how can you come out? Let's watch more movies together. Let's laugh more. And let's be more sensual and playful. Whatever the category, come out. Play the kids game. Come out wherever you are. But just watch yourself. It doesn't mean you're supposed to, you must write a book, you must paint a painting. I didn't say what form, nor how much, but are you coming out at all? I love the stories of the people like in the vendor booths here, for example. Oh, well, I just felt this calling to make crystal wands. I felt this calling to do psychic readings. I love that. You have no idea. I love that people heard it and went with it. Does it always? Because I've also heard, Michael, I was guided to write a book, and so I did. How'd you do? How's it going? Well, they're on a pallet in my garage, and nobody's buying them. Great success, I say. They go, well, what do you mean? Well, you were told, what I heard you say was, you're supposed to write a book. You did. Good job, done. Well, now they're not selling. Did the voice say? And they're going to sell? No, it didn't. See, I'm serious. And people get all heartbroken. God guided me to write a book, but it didn't sell. God didn't tell you it would sell. God said, I want you to write a book. It's an important book that's going to change lives, starting with yours. So human beings get so hurt so easily, and then they blame God. So I'm not promising you that every talent you might think you're supposed to come out with is the one that's going to blow open the most. Don't know. It varies. I lived this. I was a kid and doing this and going, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I couldn't do it for years where I only did this exclusively for income. I struggled and I cried and I was in pain and hurting and not understanding. I would go to psychic fairs when I was a kid. And psychics, excuse me, can I talk to you? Sure. And I was 16, 18 or whatever. You're going to be, wow. I can see it. They were like, wowed. You're going to be a major teacher in this world. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, hello? When? Because I'm like, 18, I should be successful by now. Why do I still have to, get another job? We go through that. Again, I'm sorry for the human struggles. All I know is be true. You're given talents. And again, the funny play on words, that's what those coins were called, talents. You're given talents. Can you bring them out? Starting with on a day-to-day level. All right, next. The Pharisees send some people over to try to trick Jesus. Ask him some questions that would, cause him to stumble and say something illegal so we can get him arrested. So they sent him, hey, what do you think about paying taxes? Jesus says, do you have a coin? They hand him a coin. He says, whose face is on that? Caesar. Well, seems to me that it's his. See the funny game he played there? Whose face is on it? Well, if it's Caesar's face, this must belong to him. So give it to him. It's like if my ID, you find it's mine. It's got my ID, right? My signature, my photo. So he's saying, well, apparently that's Caesar's. So Jesus says, give to God what's God's and give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Beautiful bridging and beautiful play of the mind there, because he leaves it back on them. You guys decide what you want to do. But I'm advising that you give to God what's God's. Well, what's God's? Your soul. Pay your taxes. Get your vaccine if that's what you want to do. Don't get the vaccine. Take care of the material world. Know the truth, but respect the illusion. How about if I just fudge a little and keep one coin and not tell the tax man about it? Do what you feel is right. But if any part of you thinks that you're, cheating someone, this is me. This is my consciousness. If I think I'm going to have more money by not giving more money, that's a linear way to think. But then I'm now controlled by that law. When I realize I can afford to give, right? You can afford to give. I was sharing that story about these landscape guys the other day. I'm not being paid, but at the end of the day, I saw these guys had put in a few hard hour after hour for a few days straight. And I just opened up my wallet and I gave them each a tip. Part of me is going, wait, now I'm not even making money. I just lost money volunteering. And again, I don't know. I still have gas in the car. You're going to be taken care of. But don't do it the way I do it. If you try to apply yourself to my level of faith or me to your level, we will find ourselves in trouble. It has to be to thine own divine self be true. So there was a great example. But next. There's the one of parable again. Jesus is saying, they were actually in this one temple and he's done parables along this line. But he says, look, there's this poor old woman. And she goes and puts a couple pennies, in the donation jar. Now there's these wealthy leaders and they come up and they put a portion. So Jesus says, did you notice that? Who gave more? Linear, left brain, material world. It's very obvious. They gave $1,000. She gave 2 pennies. Who gave more? She did. Jesus says, no. Here's why. She gave everything she had in her purse. They gave a portion. It looks good, but it was a portion. This isn't just about money there. This is about you and I. We give a convenient portion of our lives to God or to Spirit. We're only asked to give 1/7 of the week and call it a holy Sabbath. And nobody even does that. Right? So what I teach is try to start and end the day. 60 seconds. I'm not even the one day, full day a week. I'm going to give it a budget time. 60 seconds in the morning and night to think of nothing but calling in the presence of God as a feeling. Peace and happiness. And so it is. And just do that several times. Pull that in. Integrate that vibe. And again, just give a portion. Jesus is saying the old woman, the widow and so on, she gave all she had. How many people can do that? Dietarily, people have a hard time fasting. I'm totally dedicated to God. When was the last time you fasted? Well, never, because I get hungry. Okay, well, hungry for what? Food. You don't have a body. What are you putting the food in? Well, my stomach. You don't have a stomach. See, but that's too much for people to understand spiritually. So I do nothing for God because I don't know how to do anything for God. Do just 60 seconds morning and night. Find a way to devote to God. Being here once a week, I cannot put into words how grateful I am that anyone and all around the world says, I'm going to put some time into this. An hour a week, and we can have an extraordinary experience together. So we go on to, Jesus starts talking about the temple because they're very, very proud about the temple. Oh, this grand, beautiful, opulent temple. And Jesus ends up saying about the temple, this one day, every brick of this temple is going to be gone. It's like, are you into the material building? What are you learning while you're here? And I've said that many times in my talks. I can go to a conference and people sit and they're doing the conference thing or a Sunday service thing. We can actually get in the habit of just showing up and going, I'm at a conference. Wow, isn't this great? I'm at a spiritual conference. Wow. What did you get from it? Well, I was at a conference. How are you different when you left? Well, I forgot to be different. I was just kind of doing a conference. It's not a boutique. You're not just, I like that. I like a buy. This isn't an external thing. This is an internal thing. Please, whether it's your day that you devote to God, whether it's when you're cooking your foods and you say, you know, it's just food, it's just material. But I didn't say don't do it. I said respect the illusion, but God first. So when you get your food in front of you, don't bless it like it's a horrendous thing. Like, oh, dear Lord, you know, I'm blessing this food because it's evil. It's got MSGs and BADs and, you know, and it's got, this thing's going to come out of it and, you know, bite into my jugular. It's just food. It's just an illusion. It's just a make-believe thing. But I can still bring God into it and say, allow this to have all that my body needs to be healthy and strong. I'm not literally thinking this thing is stronger than a child of God, but it's a nice way to play the game. Don't bless your food because it's evil against you. Give thanks for it and empower it with having light. When you ingest something, and the Native Americans, it would be meats, or it could be grains, or it could be veggies and fruits, whatever you ingest. If you really understood this, people think this stuff it's got some nutritional value. It's not even real. It's a hologram. I mean, if you walk down the street going, you know, you're some friends and they go, hey, let's go. We're hungry. We're going to go. Hold on. I'm done. Out of thin air. They're going to think you're nuts. And not a lot of fun to dine with either. You know, just etheric, you know, wow, that's great. I feel full. But if we really understood this, we would realize, based on if I'm a broken human, I need supplements or I need nutrients from foods, I now have given the foods power. But what if you do this? What if you realized on the chain here of you know, the kingdoms here, I'm a holy child of God. When I take the buffalo, when I take the veggie, if I really know who I am, do you realize that the cells of that are actually receiving your nutrients? You think you're getting their nutrients because you forgot who you are, so that you think you're missing something that they're giving you. Now in heaven, this is hilarious. Oh, look, they're eating broccoli. They don't even like broccoli, but they're eating it because they need special nutrients from it. When we're holy children of God, the cells of those things that we're eating start to dance with delight when they are in the presence of someone who remembers that they're holy. Your broccoli nutrients and whatever else, I don't care if it's a Snickers bar nutrients, whatever they are, they will be enhanced and made into light when they enter your presence because you're a holy child of God. Think about it. I know some people don't want to believe that because you don't want to believe you're holy. But it's true. When the Native Americans taking the life, you know, of a buffalo or whatever, they believed that this was a symbiotic experience. This buffalo isn't something I'm going to kill and get something from. This is more like, I'm going to let you join with my body. We'll both be raised with this. See, it's a different level of consciousness. One, clearly, you know, humans forgot. So then he goes into, we're down to the last couple. This is kind of a cool one because it gets a little bit heavy. He says, don't be deceived when people talk about the second coming of Christ. And this is a lengthy one, but I'm only going to share a synopsis of it. He says, you know, people are going to say, you know, you got to do this to be spiritual, you got to do that, and so on and so on. All those external things. He says, when it's time, he does answer their question. How will we know that it's time for the second coming? But listen to this and see where your heart goes with it. When you hear, you know, this, that, and the other the external thing, you know, this person's the Christ, and you know, there are people on the planet that say, I'm this, you know, the final coming of Christ. I'm the Maitreya. I'm the next Buddha. Whatever, you know, silly stuff. Jesus says, look, don't even bother with that kind of preaching and spouting PR. He says, you know, it's going to happen though. When the time is come for Christ's consciousness to come to the earth, and it's now, by the way. He says things are going to happen that you should know about. Nations are going to rise up against nations. Kingdom against kingdom. There'll be great earthquakes, famines, pestilence in various places, and fearful events. And this I love because he says signs in the heavens. It's called astrology. But before all this, you will be seized and persecuted. They'll hand you over to the world leaders, you know, who will persecute you. They'll maybe even put you in prison. You'll be brought before kings and governors and all accounting on account of my name. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you're going to defend yourself. Plug into me and I'll speak through you. I will give you the right words and wisdom, and none of your adversaries will have power over you. You will be betrayed even by your own parents, Eric Clapton, brothers, sisters, relatives, children, and so on. Everyone will hate you because of your real commitment to your path. How dreadful it'll be in those days, even for pregnant women, to be bringing children into such a challenging time. There's going to be great distress in the land. There will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity, even at the roaring and the tossing of the sea. Everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. He didn't say that, I'm just paraphrasing, okay? People will even faint from terror because of what they start to see with their eyes. The whole world will be shaken, but even the heavenly bodies. Everything. Okay, now listen. Then everyone will see me returning on the clouds with power and great glory. When you see these things happening, you'll know the kingdom of God is near. Truly I tell you, this generation shall not pass. So strange and amazing, when I'm sharing these kinds of things, when the human self kind of catches up to what's being said, does that make sense? Then all of a sudden, wow, it's like a moment of overwhelm. So this generation will not pass until all these things happen. Be careful or your hearts will be weighed down with drunkenness and anxiety of life. And that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. For this will affect everyone on the face of the earth. So, there's a lot that he just said there. Part of it is literally this world. This, as we know, everything's going to be shaken and it's starting to happen, but things are going to be very intense, even more so soon. But he's not just talking about the world, he's talking about your life. When he says the seas are tossing, that's your emotions. When he says you'll be betrayed by family, all that's true, but it's also you're going to be severing yourself from your ego. You look at the metaphor. You are going to change psychologically and spiritually, is what he's describing. Externally, in mass, the human race, some big things are coming, but it's also happening in you. The second coming of Christ isn't everybody choosing the same religion. It's individually choosing to wake up to our divine self. So he says that. Then he goes on to say, and I love that he's making planetary references. There'll be signs. That's called astrology. When people say, and fundamental Christians say, Jesus is not, he doesn't like astrology and all that. Really? Come on. So, God. Then he says, this generation shall not pass. Now, what did that mean? Because technically, if it meant literally, which is why I had that moment, if he meant it literally, it meant the people that lived 2,000 years ago, right? The second coming had to have happened right then. But what he was saying was, the people that are alive during his lifetime are coming back. And they will be on the earth for this to happen. This generation meant, you people that are here with me now, 2,000 years ago, he's saying to us, you that are here now are going to be back when this happens. That's what it means by this generation will be back. And that's why that hit me so hard. So, and so we're all, reincarnating in waves and we're back for this cycle. And then he closes that with, he warns, don't allow the weight of the world and life stuff to get you trapped into addiction. The anxieties of this world are going to try to pull you into such anxiety, and it happens, and we're seeing it, that addictions are rampant, every kind. I go on tour and people tell me, oh my God, you're getting to go to that place that's so special, Sedona or Hawaii or whatever beautiful place. And they say, oh, it's so sacred. The drug addiction is so rampant in some of these places that claim to be paradise. And I'm like, wow, somebody must have missed it. The point. It wasn't paradise when you're stoned enough. How did you not experience, just find your high just in this space? the Rocky Mountain high. You know, why would you go to the Rocky Mountains and get stoned? Did you miss the feeling that was already there? Yes. Humans, their anxiety levels, easily getting trapped in having to drink, having to drug, having to food, sex, whatever else is their addiction, codependence. So he is warning us about getting trapped in addiction as a specific thing. So we're starting to wrap up now. He says, he's going to be arrested. And he goes and does a prayer, and he says, Father, I'm scared. That's a human being. I'm scared. What's coming? What they're going to do to me? It's not polite. It's not nice. It doesn't feel good. I'm scared at the pain, but I'm also scared with all the horror that people feel. How scared they are. Why they would even kill a person who's done nothing to them. That's sad too, right? So he's talking about the drama, the pain of this whole experience. So that's why he says, if it were up to me, I would say no. I would love to have this cup pass from me. But let your will be done. And by that, he's not saying, I have better ideas, but I guess I'll go with yours. What he says to you and me, do not pray to get out of your challenges. Ask God to be with you while you're in them. Please remember that. One of the simplest things I've ever said throughout my years of teaching, and one of the most important. Stop praying to get fixed and out of your mess. Pray for holiness to anchor into you while you go through your things. Because if you do, you'll change the experience. You'll bring healing and light to dark places. You'll be the savior of the situation. Instead of, I'm just messed up, God, fix all that. Which is very disempowering. But it's also irresponsible. So there's a lot there. And so in that prayer, please remember that for yourself. If I pray to be fixed from something, what I'm saying is that it has power and I need help being fixed from it. It's another route to say, wait a minute. Your will in me, as me, be done. And if God's will is done, I'm made holy. Suddenly, the events that seem to have so much power, they're reduced. My perspective is totally changed. Superstitious religion will keep praying for other things to be fixed. Spirituality is, I'm here. What would you have me do, God? I want to be part of this. All right. He's arrested. The crucifixion is happening. When Pilate arrests him, Pilate, one of his famous lines, do you not realize I have the power to crucify you? And what did Jesus say? Please don't. No. You know what he said? You don't have any power except that's what's given to you. Now listen to that. That's pretty courageous, right? To say that to the person who's holding seemingly your life in their hands. Yeah, it's really a smart thing to do is tick them off right now. But instead you go, you don't have any power. You're saying that to the guy who is in power. And you're saying you don't have any power except that which is given. So now, simple, hopefully profound to you all, but take it to your own life. Think of that when you think of your abusive parents, neglectful parents, cheating partners, addict children. Do you not know I have the power because I'm your parent to make you miserable? I'm not telling you if you're 5, you should say, Dad, you have no power but that which is given to you. It won't go well. Trust me, I tried it when I was a kid. But think about it, guys. Think about it. It sounds challenging to say that. But if you do believe it, you understand I play a part in what's happening in my life. I mean, I'd like to just go to a counselor and say, yeah, it was my mother's fault. That feels so much better. And they agree. But if you want spiritual awakening, you can't be awakened and blaming at the same time. I'm not saying they didn't do things. I'm not saying they weren't selfish or hurtful. Fine, they were. But what we said was they couldn't have done anything like that without, on some level, us believing that that's where we were at. We come in with erroneous beliefs about ourselves, undeservability. We're flawed. We're undeserving, and this is the kind of stuff it attracts. So we played a part. You don't have to believe that one because I know that one's a tough one. But that's the direction we're all going. So I love that, Jesus, even on his way to the cross, the women are crying on the side of the road, and you know that story. One of them dabs his face with a cloth. And here he tells these women, if you look in the lost books of the Bible, there's a little more of a detailed account. But here he looks at them, they're crying, and he says, don't weep for me. Don't believe in what you see. What he was saying was, this is a hologram. This is a game. It's okay. He says, don't weep for me. But he actually tells the women on the side of the road, you should be weeping for yourselves and for your children. And what he meant was the karma that's going to come to this area because of what these people are doing. It's going to be a harsh reality. It's going to be a harsh, this is the Christ we're killing. How can that go over well? So when he's crucified, the crucifixion is complete. He says, into your hands I surrender my spirit. Well, that's a beautiful, historic kind of message. Michael, thank you. No, in your life, into your hands I surrender this meal. That's what I do. Into your hands I surrender this session when I'm doing a session. Into your hands I surrender this phone bill. It's not just the life of Jesus or whatever. It's, guys, surrender everything into the hands of God so that you can raise your consciousness and move through it differently. Into your hands I surrender my spirit. And when that happened, the whole land went dark for a period of time. That is phenomenal, literally and figuratively. They have accounts all around the world that 2,000 years ago, nobody knows why, with the South Americas, the North Americas, the Asia, everywhere, that nobody knows why, but the whole world went dark for a period of hours. Why? Because that's a darkness that's already here and nobody could see it. Because we put a pseudo-light illusion in this world that where everything's just peachy. There's a darkness called the ego or evil that is over everybody's eyes and makes us think that what we're looking at is reality. There is no God because I can't see it. There are people because I can see them. That's my science test. The darkness is also a symbol of what fear is. So darkness came over the world when they crucified Jesus, but believe it or not, darkness came over you whenever you've had intimacy with somebody that you didn't like. Because the Christ in you was crucified right then. I mean, I know that might sound harsh, but try it on, okay? When you did things to your body that you didn't feel was right, you crucified the Christ and a darkness came over you. Now you need to drink more, drug more because of the darkness you know was there, but you don't want to see was there. Coping, it's called. Is that supposed to make us feel ashamed? No, let it make you wake up and say, wow, I get that. I get that. When I said I do to somebody that was a psychopath, I crucified the Christ that day. And yeah, darkness came over the land, over me, on some level. Shame myself? No, I get it. And that's, I'm going to apologize to me and make amends. Hey, listen, yes? That was kind of weird, wasn't it? Yes, it was very weird. Let's not do that again. Okay, totally. We vote, unanimously. Dismissed and change. But please consider it. Don't just hear about historic crucifixion. The times you were crucified by your own hand. So the last comment is Jesus appears after the crucifixion, resurrection, and before the ascension. He appears and he says very simply, I will come back. And it's an interesting thing because some Bibles, although they're changing some of them, the way it worded it originally, I'm going to return on the clouds. Now, it's interesting because when he's crucified, there are things happening that nobody know about, but he says, here he is, he's going to leave the land. He says, I came back to share with you that I'm arisen, I've resurrected, now I'm going to leave for a more lengthy period of time, but I'm with you always. They say parting words, he does a blessing, and it says he rose up it didn't say through, to the clouds, and then the clouds moved away. Now that's kind of weird, a weather report. We're in the middle of Jesus doing a download, and they decided to talk about, and then the clouds moved away. He rose to the clouds, and the clouds moved away. Remember that. Then it says, when he comes back, he said, earlier I read, I'm going to come back on the clouds. Why are the clouds being referenced? Now, you don't have to believe this part, but just consider this. First, metaphysically, the clouds represent ether. So it means he will come back on an etheric level. And etheric level means internally too. So that's the beautiful metaphysical meaning. I will come back on the clouds means on the ether, in the ether, and you'll feel my presence. Great, because that's the second coming is something that happens within each of us. But he is also talking about something that can be external. When he says, I've left to the clouds and they moved away, I'm coming back riding on the clouds. And with the angels too, it says, are going to become riding. And when I second coming of Christ, you'll see Jesus and all the angels riding on clouds. Why? Because they're ships of higher dimensionality. I know that sounds a little out there. Maybe not, because this is Sedona. But I know it sounds a little out there. Just keep that in the back of your mind somewhere about how amazing that is. Why did he say, the angels and I are going to come riding in on clouds? Why? Because there are things called light beings, and they're part of it. Just like there's angels, there are light beings, less high of a dimension, angels here, light beings here, and then light workers in bodies here. So that's what this is about. To me, it ties in other dimensions to this experience. And it's why Nostradamus says in the end times, and even Edgar Cayce, but in the end times, Cayce and Nostradamus talk about beings of higher dimension are going to be part of humanity's ascension process. They will be here. They will help us heal the blow-ups, literally and figuratively, and they will help us rebuild. So there's a whole beautiful experience waiting. But the old has to die. And we're seeing the pains of that. They're not so much death pains other than when we're attached. But these are birth pains. We're coming to life, guys. And the old has to die before we awaken to the new. That is inconvenient, to say the least. And it's actually painful, depending on how attached we are to our old way of life. Government, economics, whatever it happens to be. None of it's real. None of it has real power. And we have to learn that the easy way or the hard way. Okay? Please take a few centering breaths. Today we will not do a lengthy meditation, just centering. We take a moment to soak in anything we heard that made good sense to us. And we integrate it as ours. Breathe it in so that when we leave, we are different to some capacity. Hopefully, completely different. But I breathe in the things that made sense. I let them soak in and integrate. That a way I would, foods become nutrients. Nutrients become absorbed in my assimilation of those nutrients. They become a part of my wholeness. The things I heard act as nutrients. Heavenly Father, Mother God, in place of our meditation, we do a prayer meditation right now, simply asking this. We feel, to some degree or another, prepared to be part of this awakening of humanity. Our Divine Mother knows exactly how much we can handle at any given time. Give to us all the talents you see fit, but help us to have the courage to own those talents and use them so they can be multiplied. We call upon your presence, Father, Mother God. We call upon the presence of Christ. We call upon the presence of ascended masters, beings of light. Light workers throughout history are here right now. Those that met around campfires with chant, song, prayer, dance, they can see our faces in the center of the fire as they do their ceremony that has to do with connecting all into love. And there we are. They can see this room and people watching from all around the world. There is no time or space, so we need to believe this. This generation shall not pass. That's us. It's almost awe-inspiring to think that we're playing a role like that. and Divine Mother, even in the form of Mother Mary, spritz the room with your roses when you bring presents. It's so common. Spritz the room with roses and or the white lilies of the Christ symbol. The presence of sparkles of light. Even the stars of the heavens are seen by us here and now. Beings that have been light workers throughout history and before our known history and after. We're all in this together. And this is a beautiful unfolding of all that God truly is. And it starts right here, right now, with me, with us. And the room and our lives surrounded by heavenly angels, protecting, encouraging, singing songs of gratitude. And so it is. Thank you. We're going to do our closing song. Just rest for a minute first, but we're going to do our closing song. We've gone a few minutes over today. I apologize, but we had the short tirade, and then we wanted to finish that gospel, okay? All right, please stand for our closing prayer. So, and thanks for your patience. I know we gained a lot from it anyway, but just thanks for allowing me to share from some quotes from the Gospel of Luke. If you're interested in further pursuit, do that. Pray, meditate, and ask for deeper meanings to things. Hopefully you guys had some of your own epiphanies, but also from the things I shared, there might have been some light bulbs going off, right? Ranging from, dealing with people's judgment of you to light ships, But I really appreciate, that you allowed that space for us to cover, instead of a specific topic like frequency last week, a variety of quotes, all right? So thank you for that. Next week, we'll be back to the usual madness of doing whatever comes up. And I appreciate your open-mindedness. I really do. I know some of you, it might be very harsh to talk about things like vaccines, and I know, and I apologize that it's so difficult for people. But thanks for allowing us to share, okay? I definitely hope none of it came across one-sided or political, because that's not my intention, nor my interest, all right? Into our hearts, feeling some gratitude for what we experienced today. All these beautiful faces, people that are here. There's been tears today. A couple of you, tissue, and we're here and we're loving you and supporting you. So just feel that support. Getting realigned, choking up for a second and getting us all realigned. Getting the human to realign with the spirit. Because those moments, when you struggle, when you're afraid, when you're anxious, or if you choke up, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And we have those moments. Let's bring them into alignment. Then all kinds of greatness comes into our lives. We were told, don't be anxious of what to say to others, authorities, relatives. Let me speak through you. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. God bless you all. Peace be with you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.